I wasn't supposed to stay home that week. The plan was simple vacation, just the two of us. Australia, her dream destination. Beaches, wine, koalas, the full picture. We talked about it for months. Booked it together. Even bought one of those matching travel neck pillows like idiots in love. But right before we were supposed to leave, something came up at work. Something big. I run a software firm in Seattle. Contracts. Launches. The kind of pressure that doesn't care how badly you need a break. So I told Emily, my wife, to go without me. Now hold up. You want to know how one Australian koala wrecked 2 lives? This isn't your typical, she went on vacation and came back acting weird, kind of cheating story. What happened and how will absolutely shock you. And yeah, you might laugh too. Stick around. You've never heard anything like this. Anyway, Emily didn't want to go at first. Said she'd rather wait. But everything was non-refundable, and her best friend Sarah was already packed. They'd traveled together before. I trusted both of them. I kissed her goodbye at the airport, told her to take pictures. And I meant it. She messaged me almost every day. Not long updates, just a few cheerful lines. Views are amazing. We fed kangaroos today. And one day, I got to hug a koala. It made me smile. I was glad she was having a good time. And when she came home, she looked different. Not in a bad way. In fact, she looked better than before. Suntanned. Light. Refreshed. You know that glow people get when they've really been able to breathe for a while? She had that. She wrapped her arms around me at the airport like she hadn't seen me in years. We went out to dinner that night. Laughed about silly things. She told stories from the trip, the beach, the wine tours, the ridiculous amount of sunscreen. Felt good. Familiar. Safe. 2 weeks later, that's when I noticed something off. Not with her. With me. A mild discomfort at first. Lower area. Nothing dramatic. Just annoying. I thought it was irritation from soap or detergent. Maybe the gym. But it didn't go away. If anything, it got worse. So I did the normal thing. I went to the doctor. He ran some tests, asked a few questions, most of which made me feel like I was on the wrong end of an interrogation. But I wasn't worried. I knew who I was, knew what I hadn't done. Then 2 days later I got the call. You've tested positive for chlamydia. I froze. I actually laughed, thinking they'd mixed up the results. No, I said. That can't be right. But the voice on the other end didn't laugh. He just said, you should have a conversation with your partner. And that was the moment everything changed. Because I knew I hadn't cheated. And if I hadn't, then someone had. I didn't say anything right away. Not to Emily. Not to anyone. I just sat in my car in the clinic parking lot and stared at the steering wheel like it was going to explain something. I kept thinking, maybe there was a mistake. Maybe someone mixed up charts. Maybe I touched something in the gym. I Googled things I never thought I'd Google in my life. But after the 5th medical forum and 20 minutes on the CDC website, the facts were pretty clear. You don't catch chlamydia from shaking hands. And I knew where I hadn't been. So the only place left was her. But I still couldn't bring myself to believe it. This was Emily. My wife. The woman I'd trusted enough to send off across the world without blinking. So instead of confronting her, I called Brian. He's Sarah's husband, the one Emily traveled with. Old friend. We go way back. Met in college, bonded over beer, and somehow both married women who became inseparable. I figured if anyone could give me a perspective on this without losing their mind, it was him. We met at a coffee shop. Neutral ground. Public. Calm. I told him everything. From the first itch to the test result. He just stared at me. No way, he said finally. Are you serious? I nodded. And you're sure it's not? I mean, no offense, man. But could it have come from somewhere else? I shook my head. No chance. I haven't been with anyone else. Not even close. He leaned back in the booth. Rubbed his jaw. Then he looked me straight in the eye and said, You think Emily cheated? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. That silence, it said everything. Then I asked the obvious question. What about Sarah? He blinked. You think she? I don't know. But if they were always together on that trip. He looked down at the table. It hit him right there. I could see it. The slow-motion playback of every text, every detail, every weird moment since the trip. I mean, she hasn't acted any different, he said. Maybe a little quiet, but nothing out of place. I nodded slowly. Same with Emily. And then he said something that stuck with me. If one of them did it, they'd probably cover for each other. That's what best friends do. That line haunted me later. Brian said he'd talk to Sarah. He promised he wouldn't make it a war. Just ask. Keep it simple. I told him I appreciated it. I really did. Because the idea of turning to Emily and saying, "Hey, did you cheat on me while hugging koalas?" That felt surreal and impossible. So I waited. 2 days later, Brian called me. "She says nothing happened," he said. "Says they were together almost the entire time, and that you must have gotten it somewhere else." Did she sound honest? He sighed. She sounded angry, defensive, but not lying. Said you're accusing her and her friend of something horrible. That made my stomach turn. Because now it wasn't just doubt. Now I was the bad guy. But I couldn't take it anymore. I came home that night and told Emily we needed to talk. I didn't accuse her. I just laid it out. The doctor visit, the result, and the one impossible conclusion I'd tried to avoid. Her face changed slowly. First confusion, then disbelief, then fury. "Are you serious?" she said, voice rising. "You think I cheated on you?" I didn't respond. "What? You think I just went off to Australia and slept with some guy in between feeding kangaroos and buying souvenirs?" I still didn't respond. And that made it worse. Her voice cracked. She cried. She called me cruel. Said she couldn't believe I'd throw 9 years of marriage out the window because of one test result. Then she flipped it. "What about you, Ethan?" she snapped. "Maybe you're the one who cheated. Maybe that's where you got it." That hit me like a slap. And the worst part? It wasn't that she accused me. It was that she didn't look surprised. The next day, she went to get tested. She didn't say much. Just said, "Fine. Let's see what the truth is." 3 days later, her results came back. Positive. And everything just stopped. After her results came back, something between us shifted. Not in an explosive, dramatic way. It was quieter than that. Like someone had turned the volume down on our entire marriage. We still lived together. Still made dinner, talked about work, scrolled through shows we didn't care about. But everything felt muffled. Like there was a sheet of glass between us. At first, we tried to act normal. She suggested couples therapy. I agreed. Not because I believed it would fix everything, but because giving up felt too final. We sat in those sessions once a week. She talked. I mostly listened. Dr. Patel would ask how we felt. I didn't know how to explain that I felt everything and nothing at the same time. I just kept thinking, how did we end up here? One session, Emily looked at me and asked, "Do you still think I cheated on you in Australia?" I paused. Then I said, "I don't know what I think anymore." She looked away. We never brought it up again. We did the work, the journaling, the gratitude lists, tried to hold hands more, compliment each other, forced small moments of closeness. Some nights we'd laugh. We'd share a drink, sit on the porch, talk about things that had nothing to do with us. For a second, it felt like maybe we were finding our way back. But the next morning, it would vanish again. Like the moment had been borrowed from a life we used to have. She changed. I changed. The small signs were everywhere. She laughed less, smiled like it cost her something, kept her phone face down on the table, stayed out later with friends. I stopped asking questions. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't want to hear answers I couldn't handle. That was the worst part. It wasn't rage or betrayal. It was detachment. One morning, I woke up and realized I wasn't afraid of losing her anymore, because somewhere along the way, I already had. Then one night, out of nowhere, she turned to me and said, "What if we just stayed in this weekend? Ordered pizza, had some wine, watched something dumb. Just the two of us." I said sure. She smiled, soft, a little tired, like she was trying. And I felt something too. Small, quiet, but real. Hope. What I didn't know was that night would change everything again. That Saturday night felt almost normal. The kind of night we used to have before everything got complicated. No reservations. No dressing up. No silent tension at a fancy restaurant. Just us. Sweatpants. Pizza. A couple bottles of red wine and too many options on the TV. Felt easy for the first time in a while. We were both trying. Not forcing it, not pretending, just trying. And sometimes that's enough. She curled up next to me on the couch with her feet tucked under a blanket. We argued playfully about which show to watch, reality dating nonsense versus true crime. Eventually, we landed on something random, a nature travel series. It was about Australia. I paused the remote and looked over at her, raising an eyebrow. Really? I said. She gave me a half smile. Might as well. If we're finally talking again, we should face the trigger head on, right? Fair enough. I hit play. The first 20 minutes were typical scenic drone shots, upbeat voiceover, kangaroos hopping around like they owned the place. Then came the segment on koalas. Emily perked up. Oh, she said. That's exactly where we went. That wildlife park. I held one of those softest thing ever. You can't pet them everywhere, though, only in some parts of Queensland. She was smiling, caught up in the memory. And honestly, it was nice to see her like that again, animated, light. Then the host on the screen said something that made both of us freeze. Most people don't realize this, but koalas can carry chlamydia. In fact, nearly half the population in some areas is infected. And while transmission to humans is extremely rare, it is technically possible through close contact. The room went silent. I mean dead silent. I glanced at her. She looked stunned. Mouth slightly open. Eyes fixed on the screen. We just sat there for a few seconds, not saying a word, letting that sentence echo. Then we both slowly turned toward each other at the same time. Our eyes met. And for some reason, I don't know who started it, we both burst out laughing. Not polite giggles. I'm talking full body, can't breathe, tears coming down laughter. It was ridiculous. Absurd. Koalas? That's what this whole mess might have been about? The tests. The arguments. The therapy. The cold nights. All because she hugged a fuzzy little marsupial on vacation? After we caught our breath, we looked at each other again. And this time, it wasn't funny. It was warm. She leaned in and hugged me. Hard. No hesitation. No awkwardness. Just a real, full-body, no-wall hug. And I hugged her back. We sat like that for a long time, not saying anything. Then she whispered, I'm so glad you watched this with me tonight. I nodded. Me too. We stayed up for hours after that. Talked about everything, not just the trip, but memories from before. Our wedding. That terrible first apartment. The night the power went out and we ate cold spaghetti in bed and thought it was the best dinner ever. It felt like us again. Like maybe, just maybe, this whole awful misunderstanding was finally behind us. And that we could start over. Fresh. Clear. Together. But what I didn't know then was that the real story hadn't even started yet. Not really. Because just when you think the worst is over, that's when the truth finally shows up. We fell asleep on the couch that night, tangled up in each other like kids who didn't want to say goodnight. At some point past midnight, I woke up, gently shifted out from under her, and got us both a glass of water. She stirred, smiled, and patted the seat beside her. Come back, she said softly. So I did. We sat there, lights low, TV off, just the hum of the fridge and the faint buzz of the night. She was still tipsy. Not drunk, not messy, just that loose, glassy-eyed kind of softness wine brings after a long evening. And then she started to cry. Quiet at first. Just a few sniffles. I felt her shoulders shake before I even realized what was happening. I turned to her. What is it? She wiped at her eyes, laughed awkwardly. I'm sorry. It's nothing. I don't know. I feel things sometimes. All at once. I nodded. Held her hand. But she didn't let go. Instead, she looked up at me. Eyes red. Voice trembling. And said, I need to tell you something. My stomach dropped. I didn't know why, just instinct, I guess. Something in her tone. She paused. Bit her lip. Tried again. I didn't cheat on you in Australia. I stayed still. I didn't. I swear. I meant everything I said. I wasn't lying. I nodded once. Okay. Then came the part one didn't expect. But I did cheat on you. After. She looked like she wanted to disappear. It was after everything blew up. After you got the test results, after you said those things to me. When you looked at me like I was a stranger. Like I was guilty and disgusting. I didn't move. Didn't blink. I went out with Sarah and a few other girls. Just a bar. I had too much to drink. I wasn't thinking. I was hurt. I was angry. And part of me. I don't know, I guess part of me felt like if I was already being treated like I cheated, maybe it didn't matter anymore. Her voice cracked. There was this guy. I don't even know his last name. We talked for a while. I laughed. He bought me a drink. And then we went to his hotel. I closed my eyes. It wasn't a night. Just a couple hours. I left right after. I didn't say goodbye. I never saw him again. I haven't even said his name out loud since that night. She took a shaky breath. I felt sick. Not just physically, in my head. In my heart. I hated myself for it. Every single day since. I wanted to tell you so many times, but I couldn't. I didn't know how. She wiped her face again, then whispered. But after tonight, after the koala thing, after we laughed and held each other, I couldn't keep it from you anymore. You deserve the truth. I sat there for a long time, completely still. I didn't yell, didn't get up, didn't even look at her. The room felt cold, even though nothing had changed except everything. That laughter from earlier, gone. That hope, buried. Eventually, I stood up. She reached for me. Ethan, please. Please say something. But I couldn't. I walked to the door, grabbed my keys. Didn't know where I was going. Didn't care. I just knew I couldn't be there anymore. Not in that room. Not with that truth. Not yet. And as the door closed behind me, I realized the worst part wasn't what she did. It was how much, for one brief moment, I actually believed we were going to be okay. I didn't remember grabbing my keys. Didn't remember where I parked. I just walked. Fast. Like maybe if I moved fast enough, my thoughts wouldn't catch up. But they did. God, they did. I hated everything. Australia. Koalas. The couch we laughed on. The damn wine bottle still open on the counter. And I hated myself. Because even in that moment, angry, betrayed, completely cracked down the middle, I still loved her. I loved her so much it felt like my chest would cave in from the weight of it. She made a stupid decision. One stupid, selfish, angry night decision. But it didn't make it hurt less. It made it worse. Because I could almost understand why she did it. And I hated that too. I called Brian. Told him I needed a drink. He didn't ask questions. 10 minutes later, we met at this dive bar near Capitol Hill. Quiet. Dim. Cheap drinks. The kind of place where nobody cares if your world's on fire. We got a booth. I told him everything. From the TV show to the hug, to the tears, to her confession. He didn't say much at first. Just listened. Nodded slowly. Took a long sip of his beer. Then he said, "Man, I don't even know what to say." I didn't need him to say anything. I just needed someone else to know that my life had just snapped in half. But eventually he did speak. "Look, I'm not defending what she did. It was messed up. But people do dumb things when they're hurt." I said nothing. He went on. "She thought you cheated. She thought the whole relationship was broken. She made a terrible decision. But she came clean. That's something." I looked at him like he'd grown two heads. "You think I should forgive her?" He shrugged. "I'm saying, maybe don't burn it all down just yet." But I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for logic, or patience, or adult choices. I was too full of noise. So I drank. A lot. And somewhere between the third and fourth whiskey, I said the thing I shouldn't have said. Maybe I should just make it even. Brian tensed. "Ethan, come on, man." "No, seriously. She did it. I'll do it. One mistake for one mistake. Balance." "That's not balance, that's self-destruction." I laughed. A bitter, hollow sound. "Sounds like marriage, doesn't it?" He didn't laugh. He said, "Don't be that guy." But I was already halfway there. That's when I saw her. Sitting at the bar, alone, scrolling through her phone. Legs crossed, red lipstick, eyes sharp and curious. She noticed me. I noticed her. And in that moment, half drunk, fully broken, I made the choice I swore I'd never make. I stood up, walked over, said something probably stupid and charming and sad. She laughed. I bought her a drink. And 2 hours later, we were in a hotel room down the street. It wasn't passionate. It wasn't romantic. It was hollow, mechanical. But I didn't stop. Because somewhere in my fogged up brain, I thought maybe if I did this, just once, I'd stop hurting. That I'd erase what she did by doing the same. That maybe, if we were both broken, we'd be even. We'd cancel each other out. The next morning, I woke up in a strange bed with a headache and a stranger next to me. She was asleep, peaceful. Had no idea she was part of someone else's collapse. I got dressed, called a ride, and I sat in the back of that cab watching the city pass by, knowing I was about to walk into my house, look my wife in the eye, and destroy what little we had left. When I walked into the house, the sun was barely up. The air inside was still, like it hadn't moved all night. Emily was sitting on the couch. Same blanket, same half-empty wine glass on the table. She looked up when I walked in. Her face said everything. She hadn't slept. I stood by the door for a long second, keys still in hand. I didn't say hi, didn't ask how she was, didn't ask if she'd eaten or cried or replayed every word from the night before. I just looked at her and said, I slept with someone. Her eyes didn't blink, didn't widen. She just froze. Not like someone hit her, more like someone unplugged her. She stared through me, then swallowed hard. Last night. I nodded. After I left here, I called Brian. We had drinks. I told him everything. Then, I did it. Her voice was quiet. Why? I didn't have a great answer, so I gave her the real one. Because you did. Because I didn't know what else to do with the way I felt. Because I hated you. Because I loved you. Because I wanted to feel in control. Because I didn't want to go to sleep with that story stuck in my chest. I sat down across from her. Everything between us felt cold. Not angry. Not violent. Just hollow. She nodded barely, like her brain was still catching up to the moment. So now we're even? Her voice cracked. I shook my head. No. Now we're just done. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just looked down at her lap, pulled the blanket tighter around herself, and whispered, I deserve that. We didn't talk much after that. No blow-up. No dramatic scene. No threats or slammed doors or how could use. Just two people in the same room, quietly realizing they'd reached the edge of what love could hold. The next few days felt like living underwater. We said as little as possible. We moved slowly, carefully, like any word might crack the floor. I moved into the guest room. She started sleeping with the light on. At some point, we both stopped trying to fix anything, because there was nothing left to fix. I told Dr. Patel we wouldn't be coming back. She didn't sound surprised. I think she knew maybe before we did. She just said, sometimes survival looks like separation. And I couldn't argue with that. One night, maybe a week later, Emily walked into the living room while I was watching something I wasn't really watching. She sat down next to me. Not close. Just near enough to feel present. Do you hate me? She asked. I waited, then said, no, but I don't know how to love you the way I used to. She nodded. Me neither. That was the end. Not of the marriage that took a few more months. Lawyers. Papers. Logistics. But that moment? That was the real ending. The part where we both understood that even if the pain faded, the trust wouldn't grow back. And without that, what was the point? You probably think this is where it ends, right? Divorce. Sadness. Regret. Everyone walks away with their little box of trauma. Roll credits. But no. The story's not done yet. Not even close. Stick around. You'll like where it goes. The divorce itself was oddly quiet. No screaming matches. No fights over who gets what. Just signatures. Some nods. A long, hollow silence. I moved out a week later. Got a place in Queen and Corner Unit, 3rd floor, big windows. It felt sterile at first. But it was mine. I bought new sheets. New towels. Even a new toothbrush like that would scrub out everything I didn't want to remember. And for a while, it worked. The silence was peaceful. Predictable. Comfortable in a sad kind of way. We hadn't spoken since the day we signed the papers. Not a word. Not a text. Not even a happy birthday placeholder. That was the deal. We both agreed. No contact. No dragging it out. Just end it. Clean. But here's the thing no one tells you about clean breaks. They still bleed. just in places no one else can see. She haunted me. Not like a ghost in the hallway, more like static in the background of everything. Some nights I'd reach for my phone without thinking, just to tell her something stupid. A joke. A memory. Some weird thing about koalas. Then I'd catch myself. And hate myself for it. I found her mug in the back of a kitchen drawer one night. The one from the Australia trip. Don't worry, I'm koalified. I stood there staring at it like it had said something cruel. Then I put it back. Because what else do you do with the parts of someone you're trying not to miss? I heard through a friend she was doing okay. Running again. Working more. Took up some pottery class. Living, I guess. Just like me. Except, not really. Because even though I wasn't calling her, I was thinking about her. Way more than I wanted to admit. And then one random Tuesday night, 6 months after everything, she showed up at my door. She almost didn't press the button. Emily stood in front of my door for 5 full minutes. That's not a guess, I saw the footage later. Just stood there. Hands in her coat pockets. Shifting weight from one foot to the other. She looked different. Not worse. Just quieter. Like someone who'd made peace with being nervous. Finally, she looked up, took a breath, and pressed the button. The camera blinked on. My phone buzzed. And there she was. Right on my screen. For the first time in half a year. I just stared at the image for a second. Froze, honestly. I wasn't expecting anyone. Definitely not her. Then I tapped the answer button. Hey, I said. She blinked. Her voice cracked slightly. Hi. I didn't rush. Didn't play cold. But I couldn't pretend this was normal. What are you doing here? She hesitated. Then looked down, half smiled. I wanted to see you. That's all. I wasn't gonna call. I know we said we wouldn't. But I don't know. I was in the neighborhood. I smiled. Couldn't help it. In the neighborhood, huh? She nodded, sheepish. Then looked up again. I understand if you don't want to see me. I'll go. Pause. I had to try. There was a long moment. The kind that would have felt heavier if I'd been standing behind the door. But I wasn't. So I told her. I'd let you in. She lit up, but only for a second. Then I added, but I'm not home. She blinked. Wait, what? I grinned. I'm in Australia. She froze. Stared at the camera like it had just glitched. You're what? In Australia, I repeated. There was silence. Then, are you serious? Dead serious, I said, laughing a little. I'm literally standing outside a cafe in Brisbane right now. You're joking. I swear I'm not. She stepped back from the door like she needed a wider view of the conversation. What are you doing there? I shrugged. Honestly? Trying to figure that out myself. She didn't say anything. So I went on. My boss pretty much forced me to take a vacation. Said I needed to hit reset. So I figured why not come see what the fuss was about. Emily laughed softly like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. You came to see the koalas? Pretty much, I said. Thought I'd try to look one of them in the eye. She covered her mouth, but I still saw her smile break through. That's ridiculous. I know, I said. But you made it sound amazing. The air went quiet again. Not heavy. Just full. Then she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Would it be crazy if I flew out there? My heart didn't skip. It just paused. Like it was waiting to see what I'd say. I took a breath. I'd meet you at the airport. Then added. But no hugging koalas this time. She laughed full, real laughter. The kind I hadn't heard since before everything broke. And I laughed too. Because somehow through everything, we were still us. And that's how it ends or maybe begins again. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was he right to let her fly all the way to Australia? Should he have slammed that door instead? Hit like, smash subscribe, and hey, you stuck around till the end, you're a legend.